I mentioned in my Bloodborne video that I'm a big fan of body horror. But did you know I'm also a fan of
psychologically damaged characters and disturbing subject matters. I really like fucked up shit.
If you're not comfortable with those things, in fact, if you're not comfortable with any of these, then this is not the video for you. Go watch Markiplier or something. Ichi the Killer is the most disgusting, depraved, perverted manga I've ever read. And I love it. Ichi the Killer is a seinen manga written by Hideo Yamamoto, this guy, from 1999 to 2001. If you know me personally, then you've probably heard me gush about Homunculus, also written by Yamamoto. And just like Homunculus, Ichi the Killer is full of some fucked up ass dudes. But this manga is so much more disturbing than Homunculus. It's not even a contest. Ichi the Killer is a murder mystery where you know the murderer within the first 2 pages. It's Ichi, a sadistic, twisted fucking psychopath. I'll talk about him more later. He's an assassin sent to take down this Yakuza clan.
Well then, Speaker, how the fuck is this manga any interesting, you piece of shit?
Oh my god, shut up. The other dumbass characters didn't read the manga, so they spend the entire story trying to find out who the murderer is. It's Ichi. There are multiple different factions with different motivations, and they're all playing these crazy mind games on each other, which keeps the story fresh and interesting. There's plenty of plot twists, and just general crazy shit going on. But uh-oh, Ichi fucked with the wrong people.
The Yakuza!
Led by the second in command,
the original mob boss was the one that was murdered.
Masao Kakihara. Okay, in a manga called Ichi the Killer, you'd think Ichi was the focus, right? Well, me fucking too, but just like his assassin role, majority of the time he's in the shadows. The focus for a lot of the story is actually Carrot Hacker here. Kakihara is a masochist, and you know, I dabble, I understand, but he's really into this shit. His design reflects this perfectly. He's covered in scars and piercings. His cheeks are split open and only held together by rings. Just imagine what his penis looks like. Yes, I've seen it. This not only makes him look menacing on screen, but his design shows his personality so well. You can tell the kind of guy he is just by looking at him. And his exaggerated swagger on screen makes him one of the most entertaining villains I've ever seen. If you ask me the best thing about this manga, my answer would always be Kakihara. In fact, if you look up Ichi the Killer on Google, Kakihara is always the first thing you'll find. If you didn't know any better, you'd probably think the series is about him. He's even in the thumbnail of this video. Kakihara spends the story with his Yakuza clan trying to find out who murdered his boss.
It was Ichi.
So, in order to get information out of people, he resorts to torture and murder. His torture methods are slow and painful and awful and evil and It's genuinely some of the hardest shit to read. He carries around these big ass needles and since, you know, he's a masochist, he knows how to deliver the most pain to people without actually killing them. Ichi and Kakihara have an incredibly strange and perverted relationship. There's a great in-depth video about it by CJ Mack. But the gist of it is that Kakihara used to have a little bit of fun with his boss, the one that got murdered.
It was Ichi.
And now that his boss is dead, he's trying to find someone else who can deliver him the ultimate pain, so he can have the most epic orgasm ever. And Ichi, who I'll talk about in a bit, is a sadist. He gets off to delivering pain. So as Kakihara spends more and more of the story figuring out about Ichi's killing methods, he starts getting really hot and bothered at the idea of getting hurt by Ichi. By the time you reach the climax, Kakihara is full hard-on, and he knows Ichi is out to get him. Anyway, enough about Kakihara. He's definitely up there with some of my favorite villains in media, and he's someone I'll never truly forget. Who am I kidding? I could never stop talking about him. Mwah. Ichi the Killer. He's a sadistic, psychologically troubled hitman with the mind of a child. What a great main character to focus on. Ichi is fucking terrible. When I say sadistic, I mean that he derives so much pleasure from inflicting pain that he literally ejaculates every time he kills someone. He frequently fantasizes about inflicting pain on and eventually raping a prostitute he frequents. For a majority of the story, Ichi is just handed these hit targets by someone, who I'll talk about later. The few times Ichi is shown at the start, it's always a bit more sympathetic. It seems like he's naive to the murders he's committing, justifying his actions by comparing his hit targets to his childhood bullies. Ichi's design portrays his character pretty well. Aside from looking like Moomin Rider, he looks very basic, like a face amongst the crowd. He has very few outstanding features. While I have a distaste for basic character design, I think Ichi's is effective because of his role in the story. Being an undercover assassin, it would make sense for him to look innocent and unassuming. When Ichi is in the spotlight, a lot of emphasis is placed onto his past and how that trauma has shaped him into becoming the killing machine he is today. And boy, he is so fucked. I won't go into it for spoiler reasons, but if you've read the manga, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of his past is shrouded in mystery, and it's mostly up to the reader to piece together what's real and what's been placed in his head. As I mentioned earlier, Yamamoto excels at creating realistic, psychologically damaged characters. Homunculus is like one of my favorite manga ever for that reason alone. There's a lot of care placed into making Ichi's philosophy and actions feel very real, and it's pretty scary. Just like his quiet bystander look, Ichi feels written as someone who could be around us anywhere, like someone on the outskirts of society. His method of killing, while being part of his design, also reflects his sadistic nature. He has these axes on the bottom of his heels, and he can deliver these fatal one-shot blows. The most graphic content is usually the result of Ichi, and when I say graphic, I mean holy fucking shit! So, who's the guy giving Ichi all the hit targets? Well, it's this short-ass, dump-ass old guy. And he's probably the most mysterious figure in the entire manga. He only goes by Jiji, and he's the one pulling the strings on all the characters. Jiji is usually the one driving the plot forward, or presenting most of the plot twists. He gets himself and others in so much shit. And despite being so small, his influence on the story is arguably bigger than anyone else. Jiji sets up the murders for Ichi to take care of, and has Ichi look up to him as some sort of fatherly uncle-ish figure. I can't say much about him without spoiling, but I think he's fantastic. The art. Dude, if you've read Homunculus, I don't have to tell you how good the art is. Hideo Yamamoto is so underrated in the West. The only reason people know about Ichi at all is because of the live-action movie, which is actually pretty good. Yamamoto's ability to portray how the characters are feeling, usually paired with a lot of dark shading, is genuinely haunting. And the way he draws cities and landscapes, oh man, I'm appalled at how he does it. I see a lot of mangaka, even ones that I heavily respect, really struggle to come up with different facial designs to make the characters stand apart. Hideo Yamamoto is the complete opposite. Every character looks extremely unique, and it kinda adds to the realism. Stuff I fucking liked! Moral ambiguity may not be the best way to describe this series. There are no moral gray areas. Everyone in this story is an awful, depraved psychopath. However, it's extremely surprising how Yamamoto can endear you to some of these awful people through their situations or relationships. It makes the characters feel real. Like, hey, this guy might be a total degen, but he's also got people he cares about. And you end up caring about them too. At least, I did. Which may say more about me than anything else. But, moving on! This is genuinely one of the best paced stories I've ever read. The story never stops for a second, it's always feeding you new info. You just have to see how it ends. If anything, I think I would compare this story to Attack on Titan's pacing, which may sound weird, just considering how different those stories are, but I'd even argue it's better than Attack on Titan's pacing. The events less feel like major arcs and just events, back to back to back. It's only around 100 chapters, with about 20 pages per chapter, and it feels like not a single panel is wasted. Every character interaction, every plot progression, it all builds up towards the ending. It makes for a reading experience you can't put down, if you can stomach it, that is. You know how in some series, the side characters will all have some sort of quirk to make them at least a little memorable? Well, Ichi the Killer's take on that is, every character has some sort of fetish. It's as bad as it sounds. Nothing is too taboo for this manga. And I kinda love it for that. And one of my favorite parts of the story is definitely the ending. The final confrontation with Kakihara and Ichi is genuinely one of my favorite confrontations between a villain and a... You know, I definitely can't call Ichi the hero, and he's not even really the protagonist. How about the villain and the Ichi? Things that I didn't like so much. Now I know I just sung the praises of the ending, and while, yes, it does have amazing character interaction, the actual events that take place and the quote-unquote action are just anticlimactic as shit, dude. The entire story is building up to this final confrontation, and when it finally gets there, it's kinda like they missed the ball completely. It didn't get the home run it deserved. Foul ball. Pitch runner.
Baseball terminology. Fuck yeah.
And then at the very end, there's somewhat of a bombshell that kind of changes what you think about the series, and it leaves a lot of the events up for interpretation. I usually really like this in stories. That's one of my favorite parts of Homunculus, actually, but I don't think it works as well here. It wasn't particularly bad, but it wasn't impactful either. Yamamoto seems to be great at telling stories, but he always struggles finishing them. In conclusion, I think if you can stomach it, this manga is a must-read. There aren't really any other series like it, ones with such compact storytelling that are such a joy from start to finish. It has such a heavy atmosphere of the crime-ridden streets of Japan, brought to life by its awful characters. And aside from some cartoony action set pieces, a lot of this manga feels grounded in reality. This manga won't really change the way you think about yourself, like Homunculus does, but there's still plenty to chew on, and it's honestly worth a couple rereads just to recontextualize everything in your head. There are very few manga that are quite like this one, and I hope you'll check it out. If you're not really a manga person, I would recommend the film by Takashi Miike. It handles the plot points pretty well, and it's the reason that this manga is such a cult classic in the West to begin with. If you've already read it and you want to hear more people gush about it, check out CJ Mack and Wild Eagle's videos on it. They're great, small content creators worthy of your attention. If you want me to talk about another anime or manga, leave a comment and maybe I'll check it out. I've been sitting on this video script for 3 months. 3 fucking months! That One Piece 1000 video, I made in just a few hours. I was originally planning to come out with this video January 1st and mark my return to YouTube, but I just wasn't happy with the script of this video. So, after sitting on it for a while, I decided to just scrap it and start over. But making videos has actually been pretty fun. Thank you guys so much for the support. I'm pretty close to 250 subscribers, and I would love to keep making content like this for viewers like you. So, like, subscribe, and thanks for the video.